Hello, everybody. Welcome to a clean shaven, or relatively clean shaven, video where I ramble about things that may or may not matter to you at all. Today, I wanted to talk about a video that Thorn had posted, which I'll link up above if I can figure it out, where he kind of highlights the MSL StarCraft League, the old NBC game StarCraft League from way back in the day in the Brood War era of esports, where this format was kind of interesting, and it was a format that we haven't really seen much use coming into the modern era of esports. And what's really interesting about this is that there is this ongoing rumor, and it is completely speculation, that the NBC Sports brand will be coming back into Overwatch and will be the host for Contenders Korea. And it's interesting how those two might actually connect and what format they might use. So it was interesting that he posted that video, and this rumor kind of is kind of running around the mill, as it were. It was interesting that we could maybe see that format spring back up and might be used within Contenders Korea. Now, to kind of give you a brief history lesson, there was two major StarCraft leagues back in the day. It was the On GameNet Star League, which was the OSL, and the NBC Star League, which was the MSL. And the MSL, from my understanding, was supposed to be the more prestigious of the two, where they kind of favored the winners and the champions and the kings at the time, and gifted them these little perks that they could alter the groups and finagle with people and change people around with varying levels of power. So 16 seeds, 16 to 3 could maybe change one or two people around. The second seed, obviously increasing in power, could change 2 to 3 people, or I think it was 2 people. And then the first seed could make lots of changes and really finagle with the groups. That being said, you can obviously tell how these groups might stack out in with Contenders Korea possibly using the same format. I wanted to take that concept and apply it to old Apex scenarios and possibly see teams not make it out, teams that might make it in, and anything else in between. So, looking at the first season of Apex, right? Those first tournament placings would really carry a lot of weight, because if we remember, we had Lunatic High, teams like BK Stars, Kongdu Uncia. Those teams would have then been kind of grandfathered into this MSL format and been gifted these perks. So we probably would see teams like BK Stars, Kongdu Uncia last a bit longer and maybe peak a little bit higher with their performances, or at least be able to consistently place well within playoffs, or at least make playoffs going later into the Apex seasons. A team like BK Stars, for instance, might actually see a peak past season 2 where they weren't gifted by the hand of fate a very hard group. They would have been able to pick their own group, basically, from having been played, or having played very well in season 1. They might have been able to pick a stronger group in season 2 for them to get out and make it into playoffs, which again would then give them another good pass in season 3, and so on and so forth. You see the kind of delineation we're going through there. A team that might not have done so well would be, or a team that actually would have done probably a little bit better than what they did, was Team Envious, coming in as the first seed from season 1, coming into season 2. If you have that much power to kind of change the groups, I can't necessarily, I can't poo-poo on them for changing season 2 around to favor them. It's their job. They got to place really well. So I think season 2, Envious might have actually done better than what they did, and they still managed to do really well. So it's possible maybe we see Envious in another quarterfinal, maybe another semifinal. It's possible. Maybe they even win the whole damn thing. It's possible. Rogue possibly would have made some interesting placings, because if we remember back in season 2, that group A bracket was incredibly stacked. I think we had Lunatic High, Kongdu, Rogue, and at the time it was Mighty AOD, which was the team that Kareev and Fate were kind of brought over from. It's possible that Rogue makes it out of their group that they kind of trickle down and fit into, that they get seeded into. Kongdo Uncia being the one of two sister teams of the Kongdo organization, Panthera being the kind of talented little brother, and Kongdo Uncia being a little bit more refined older brother. I think Kongdo Uncia might have placed a little bit more steadily throughout their seasons. While I don't think they would have been the strongest of the Kongdo sister teams, they certainly would have been able to probably make playoffs after their very first performance in Season 1, where they were very clearly the better of the Kongdo brothers, as it were. And within Season 4, that's where it gets really interesting, because we don't have very many Western teams, but we do have teams coming over from the Challenger Series like LW Red, GC Busan, and NC Foxes. And that's where I think things get really interesting, because they probably would have been picked very early on in the kind of bracket changing process that the MSL allows for higher seeded teams. So if we remember, Group C in Apex Season 4 had a lot of Challenger Series teams in it. I think we had Rox Orcas, GC Busan, and LW Red, with Afrika being kind of predicted very heavily from a lot of pundits and analysts to be very easily, being able to make it out of the group very easily. Where GC Busan, they didn't really peak until kind of right as playoffs hit, and they really exploded and, kind of turned into that crazy monster team. So it's very reasonable to kind of argue that GC Busan may never have made the run in Apex Season 4. We might actually have a different Season 4 winner. Maybe Kongdo Panthera probably would be my bet if GC Busan didn't make it, or were knocked off early enough that they wouldn't hit their kind of apex or their peak. Not to derive any confusing definitions around. But it's interesting to see how this format, the format favors the champions and the teams that did place really well. And see, it's an interesting experiment. I encourage those who are interested to go and look and make your own kind of fantasy brackets, if it were. Oh, I'm sorry, that was probably really loud. Where they might see deviations in the Apex seasons. And it's interesting that the rumor has it that the NBC Sports Plus is coming into Contenders Korea and might be taking that over. Will they use the best of 4 format? Will they use the old MSL format? Who knows? But it's interesting. Do a little research, do a little homework. I encourage those who want to definitely take a look at it. It's kind of interesting, and it might actually create more interesting storylines than what we had prior. So thanks for listening to me ramble about things that are interesting to me. Maybe they're interesting to you, but who knows? Follow me on Twitter if you want to hear more of my rambles. Check out some other videos down below. Subscribe if you feel like it. And until next time, take care.